the NGSS-ESS working group. Thanks for grabbing that recording, Ashley. Appreciate that. And today we have a webinar that's being presented about, drumroll please, Earth Science Week. We all know it. It comes up every October. We all wait for it. Our students probably even wait for it. I know mine did. But here we're going to hear from the American Geosciences team that is all about Earth Science Week at this time of year. They'll be telling us about providing multifaceted support for NGSS-ESS instruction. So with us today, we have Lauren, Sequoyah, Lindsay, and Ed. We will ask that during the course of the webinar, you drop ideas, thoughts, comments, questions, all of that into the chat box. It's a chat box. It's not a question and answer box. Chat so that we can have that back channel discussion there. So please do drop those things in there. We will save a little bit of time at the end for any lingering questions and discussion. There will be a post-webinar survey. We'll give you that link again at the end of the time together. Just a couple quick announcements. We do have another upcoming webinar. Still waiting for the title on this one, but it's sure to please all of us. It's going to be presented by the Infiniscope team, who comes to us from ASU. That'll be on November 2nd. So beginning of October, watch your inbox for registration materials to come through on that. And then teaser, February, we will be presenting a webinar that we think may be titled something like Geoscience Teaching and Learning in the Time of AI. So make sure that you're watching for that one. We are super excited about that and hope you will be too. As always, our entire webinar list and archived recordings are available to you on the AGI YouTube channel. Thanks to Sequoyah for always making sure that those are updated there quickly, and this one will be there too within a matter of a couple of days. So as I said, and before we turn things over here to Lauren, Sequoyah, Lindsay, and Ed, please drop your ideas, thoughts, comments, questions into the chat box as we go through the webinar. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn things over to Lauren. Go ahead and grab it.
Great. Thanks, Aida, so much for the introduction, and thank you guys for attending the webinar today. We're so excited to share information about Earth Science Week and specifically how the Earth Science Week resources can provide support for NGSS and ESS instruction. I am Lauren Brase, an education specialist with the American Geosciences Institute, and I'm presenting today with the Education Outreach Department, Sequoyah McGee, Lindsay Mossa, and Ed Robeck, as Aida had mentioned. And a brief background about AGI for those of you that do not know about us. We are a federation of member societies and represent and serve the geoscience community by providing collaborative leadership and information to connect earth, science, and people. And specifically, our department works to do that within the K through 12 space. So we design educational materials, put together PD workshops, and we also help spread the word about what our member societies have to offer. And one main event that AGI organizes is Earth Science Week, which we will focus on today. And before I forget to mention this, we will be sharing this slide deck with you. So feel free to sit back, relax, and only take notes about anything not on the slides because you will be sent them later on. So every October since 1998, the American Geosciences Institute organizes Earth Science Week, and it's intended to introduce the public, including educators and students, to current and emerging ideas in the geosciences through themes. These themes and Earth Science Week in general is celebrated in a variety of ways, including events around focus days, which we'll talk about later. And more generally, though, Earth Science Week events occur in all 50 states and in more than 20 countries each year. And through these events and in other ways, Earth Science Week is able to connect educators with resources, organizations, and opportunities to enhance geoscience education.
Hi, everyone. Ed Robeck, I direct Education Outreach and also have the privilege of working with these folks on Earth Science Week. As we wanted to organize our presentation about how the Earth Science Week supports the instruction related to next generation science standards, we went to this book, the Guide to Implementation, which is available free from the National Research Council. And in it, there are 21 recommendations that cover a range of different topics, everything from what the school system can do to support NGSS to communities and so on. We're going to pick 5 of these today that we're going to focus on as we talk about the ways that Earth Science Week supports NGSS instruction. One of those is that it's important to communicate the vision of instruction, or what NGSS-aligned instruction should look like, especially for people who are new to it. And that relates to the second bullet there too, which is that the change that's called for NGSS for folks who haven't been introduced to it already is something that to take on incrementally and with continuing change, but not necessarily with a radical change that destabilizes the system. The third bullet is that the idea that professional development needs to be ongoing, needs to be subject matter specific, needs to be NGSS related, and needs to be based on the best available evidence about professional development. And then, of course, identifying and participating in networks supports NGSS instruction, so that we've got strength outside the classroom that's coming in to support educators, and also cultivating partnerships for those same reasons, but also so that we can get the resources that other partners, other organizations have available to support NGSS instruction. So from there, we're going to organize ourselves around these kind of 3 blocks, or 3 facets, if you will. We're going to talk about how the Earth Science Week materials support the vision of instruction and incremental and continuous change. Professional development is the second one. And then the third, we're going to put networks and partnerships together and talk about that related to Earth Science Week materials.
Move my slide deck to move. Sorry, guys. Great. Thanks. And with those recommendations or facets that Ed had mentioned, we, the Education Outreach Department, we curate a toolkit every year, and that includes classroom resources, professional learning opportunities, networking, and more, just like Ed just mentioned. So we try and incorporate all of those different facets into this toolkit in Earth Science Week in general. And this year, the toolkit materials are related to geoscience, innovating for Earth and people, which is this year's Earth Science Week theme. And we will celebrate Earth Science Week on starting October 8th, which will last all the way until October 14th. And as you can see here, are all the different materials that are listed, that are included in this year's physical kit. And there are a lot of variety to these materials. We have posters, bookmarks, and more. In order to kind of share those materials in a different way, you can see them all listed here. A lot of text, again, no need to read it all here, but you can see all the details, and they come from a number of organizations. And some of these materials are also available online, the ones with the stars next to them, and they are stored, again, in the online toolkit, where you can download materials from this year's toolkit, and also it includes previous year's toolkit materials as well. And we're going to spend basically the remainder of the webinar examining some of these resources and how they help enable NGSS-aligned instruction.
So as Ed mentioned before, one of the things that we're looking to do is continuously change and add to the materials that we make. And so as we pull together different resources from various partners and make our own resources that go into every year's toolkit, we make sure that there are direct connections to NGSS. Now, specifically, we look at the science and engineering practices, the disciplinary core ideas, and the cross-cutting concepts, and make as many connections to those as possible to bring them into your classroom. This year, especially, being that innovation is our theme, we want to connect as much as possible to the one section that we think typically gets overlooked, which are those engineering, technology, and applications of science connections. And so in doing so, we can make sure that we get engineering components into our lessons as well. We typically focus on instruction that has real-world phenomena, so bringing experiences that are in the students' real lives and in their worlds into instruction. And in doing so, we really want kids to start asking their own questions. We have a lot of activities that are centered around students developing questions and being able to wonder about the phenomena themselves. And then those can lead to meaningful investigation. So the experiments that you do in your classrooms and the other activities that you do with students can lead to answers to those questions, or at least connect to concepts that explain phenomena and really get students to delve deeply into earth science connections. And then also we want to focus on what's unique about science. So what teaching practices or techniques can we use in a science classroom that really engage students and highlight what science is all about, especially in those science and engineering practices, and all the fun stuff that we get to do with students in our science classrooms. So one of the things that we make for the toolkit every year is a wonderful activity calendar. And I don't just say that because I'm very heavily involved in its development, but we work with these amazing partners that have a wide range of activities, one per month in the calendar. So I'm going to give you just a minute here to read through some of the titles of these activities. So you might recognize some of those acronyms there, so NOAA and NASA and USGS especially, but all of those are our partners that we work with to sponsor these activities or develop these activities with. And you can see they cover a wide range of topics. So they're all earth science related, they're all going to be NGSS related, but they cover many different things about innovation since that's our theme for the year. So it's not just innovations talking about technologies, but innovations in the practice of earth science to show how the entire science as a system is really advancing and updating to meet the needs of people nowadays. So we are going to go through one of these activities, one of the online activities, although some of them do have hands-on opportunities. So this one here was developed by the Earth Science Information Partners, who is one of our partners who has an education focus and was able to make a new Hurricane Explorer simulation. So in this activity, you'll see that there's an entire procedure and analysis questions that are directed at students. So really, this is made for you to be able to use directly in your classroom as is. And then we typically give suggestions for how to take it a little bit further in your classroom. And one of the things that we make sure that we do is those direct NGSS connections. So you'll see the box down in the corner there has the SEPs, DCIs, and CCCs right from not only the framework, but NGSS, saying that we are going to be using a model during this. We're going to be talking about natural hazards and can also connect to climate change, and then talking about patterns as well as cause and effect as we go through the activity. There's another connection that we also make as well, and we're really ramping this up year by year. And these are connections to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So you'll see it says there in the corner, the SDG connections. If you're not familiar with those, the United Nations outlined 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which really address the world's greatest issues at the moment. It really covers pretty much every issue that you can possibly think of that humans and the environment face. So I'm going to come back and talk to those once we've gone through this simulation a little bit. And in doing so, you'll kind of understand why we made the connections there that we did. So what we're going to do is give you about 5 minutes to try out the Explorer. So in just a minute, Sequoyah will drop the link into the chat. But at the same time as you're going through this Explorer, kind of keep in mind that there is a procedure that goes along with it. What it asks you to do is start off just really open-ended, allowing kids to explore the simulation, which is what you're going to do today. But then during the actual procedure, what they do is try to recreate the situation that led to Hurricane Harvey in 2017. So they get information about that, they get maps about that, and really look at how the simulation can be used to show us what we would kind of expect when different parameters are set, how they are. And you'll understand that a little bit more as you go through the simulation. But while you're working on that, we'll also have a Jamboard for you to be able to answer a few of these consideration questions. So these questions will be directly in the Jamboard, and you can use a text box or a post-it note in order to give us some insights into what you're thinking when you are considering these questions. So if you drop those links in the chat there, I'm sorry, I wasn't checking the chat, so they might already, yes, they are already there, yay. And so you can access that simulation and then also the questions as well. And then we'll check in about 5 minutes and see what you guys have to say about the simulation. Change is Sorry. Another thing to change is the season. So you'll be able to see the temperature changes in the surface of the ocean and other bodies of water as you do that. And then once you hit play, you'll be able to see the movement of the storm system. With the screen, or we can always talk about them in the chat as well. Ooh, it looks like someone might have wiped out the whole first screen of the Jamboard, but I did read them all before that happened, so it's okay. So the question here was, what is the benefit of having an open-ended exploration of the simulation before giving students to answer the questions and go through the procedure? But yeah, it absolutely allows them to make predictions. So one of the assumptions that I made was that people out there are clickers like me. So I click everything there is. I just assume I'm going to break the computer at some point. So I like to play around with things, and I'm guessing that there are students out there as well. So they're, if they're going to click on everything, may as well ask them to do that right away. Yeah, so they can make predictions about the high and low pressure systems. They can look anywhere they want and change things however they want. Says it's interesting to move the highs and lows and see about how it's going to predict or how it's going to impact the direction of the hurricane. Yeah, so kids kind of get to answer and start asking their own questions and start wondering how all of these variables play into each other as they're going to be going through the simulation. So I see in the chat, there is a guide for what variables to do. So part of that calendar activity that we showed before is actually going to guide students through what to start pressing and how to try to recreate a specific hurricane event that happened in 2017. So it will give them a little bit more direction after they get a chance to kind of play around and get comfortable with the simulation. All right, so now we have, what additional questions would you ask students as they use and analyze the results from this? So what do you think are some analysis questions you might be able to ask? Ooh, there's one posted there. It's kind of small though, I can't see it. So have them make the hurricane hit a specific location and see how each group could do this in different ways. Absolutely, to see like what tools you need to manipulate to be able to get the hurricane to make landfall in specific areas. That's definitely one thing that you could have them do here, and then even have them jump over to like Google Earth and see how many people are living there, what are the cities along the coastline that might get affected by that, and kind of like look at the different areas and see how it might change. Yep, so like moving more things around, absolutely. To identify their home and be in danger from the hurricane, absolutely. So putting themselves in that position to see that if it's a hazard that would affect them. Great. And the next question, what PEs could you address with this simulation? So we're talking about the performance expectations within NGSS. So as we showed on the activity, we connect to the SEPs and DCIs, but not specific PEs necessarily. So which ones might it actually address? Might be a difficult question to answer without having to look them up. Okay, good. There's a middle school one there. Great. So that one's on Earth systems, about collecting data to provide evidence for how motions and complex interactions of air masses result in changes in weather conditions. Perfect. I just had that memorized, by the way. And then how could you build a more robust activity or unit related to this? So relating it to current climatic events, absolutely. So being able to change the temperature and see what a warming ocean would do. And then they can follow how that change is going to affect hurricanes, absolutely. Possibly looking up news articles about more recent hurricane events. I know I personally track a weather person on Facebook. He is my go-to source for all weather. So in playing around with that and actually going through the activity, if you were to do this with your students, as I mentioned before, you'll be able to connect to some real world scenarios. So going back down in the corner there, we see the SDG connection. So one, I made a connection to sustainable cities and communities. So that's SDG 11. And so what this looks at is how do we as a nation, as a city, build sustainable communities. So you're talking about like the actual buildings themselves and the infrastructure, but also ones that are resilient to change and to possible hazards that hit. And then 12 is climate action, specifically because we're looking at the emergence of more and more hurricanes and stronger hurricanes as climate change continues to occur. And so how do we address that in order to not only curb climate change, but also just to mitigate when certain events happen. And so that's why I made those SDG connections and able to, bring in those real world problems and how they're being addressed around the world into the actual activity rather than just kind of making it disconnected. And that's what some of you actually sort of mentioned in your comments, saying that you would want to relate it to the students as much as possible. And then as well in the kit, aside from the calendar, we also have other partner resources that can be directly used in the classroom. So USGS, for example, has developed a new water cycle diagram, and you'll find a copy of that directly in the kit. And our lovely Lauren has made an activity that's going to be coming out soon for that. So you'll be able to have direct ways to use it in your classroom, as well as, again, those direct connections to NGSS. And we have others as well, including climate, urban agriculture, and exploring geoscience careers as worksheets that can be used directly in the classroom with students.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. So what that shows is how these activities can be focused on different aspects of the SDGs, of the next generation science standards, different approaches in the classroom, different aspects of the geosciences. So when we talk about the different facets that their Science Week kit or their Science Week celebration covers, a lot of folks sort of stop there. They think about, oh, all these activities that are in the kit, and that is really wonderful. We think that that's a great aspect of the kit. But we also recognize that there are these other facets, including, for example, professional development. And there are a number of ways that our Science Week supports educator professional development. So, for example, there are partners that provide professional development opportunities to educators, and they put items that remind educators or tell educators about those opportunities in the kit themselves. So like the American Meteorological Society has the CAT or Certified AMS Teacher program. They always put something in the kit about that to remind teachers that that's available and show them how to find that, and these other ones as well. So a lot of these are really excellent and very well aligned with the next generation science standards so that teachers can access them in their direct ways. I did want to put in a kind of a shameless plug. The group that organized this webinar, NESTA, NAGT, and AGI, is referred to as the NGSS-ESS working group. We've recently, and I'm one of those members on behalf of AGI, we've recently initiated a professional development opportunities portal where we're asking different providers to put summaries of a synopsis of their opportunity on the portal so that teachers kind of have ultimately a one-stop shop where they don't have to run into things randomly or whatever. They can go to that portal. We're suggesting that you bookmark that right now because it's kind of in transition. We're taking off some of the older things or things that have already passed, putting on some of the newer things or asking providers to. So that's there for you as well. So these are sort of the formal professional development opportunities provided by different organizations. But also we have opportunities incidentally through the kit materials, which I'll show you in a moment. And then also through webinars that we'll be sharing with you that we put together for Earth Science Week with a number of different organizations. So when I talk about what's going on incidentally through the kit, one of the things that we do, for example, is we create this Earth Science Week poster every year. And when we design the poster, we always think about the theme. And in this case, for example, Geoscience Innovating, what we're really trying to do is, in many ways, is update people's image of the geosciences. We kind of have an image problem. Sometimes people think of it as an old staid area of the sciences, but really it's very high tech, very exciting. And we wanted to show that. And one of the ways to show that is the uses of drones. But a lot of educators may not have been introduced to drones or the ways that drones are being used. So this introduces them to that, but then there are more resources that they can use to educate themselves about them and to bring that into their classrooms, which Lauren's going to share.
Great, thanks, Ed. So on the front of the poster, you saw a bunch of different images from some of our Earth Science Week partners related to drones. On the back, we've elaborated on that content, but also connected it to learning activities that you can do with your students in the classrooms related to that poster. But we also have some resources on our website that use drones in curriculum, so you can actually bring drones into the classroom as well. On the back of the poster, we also have some other innovations that we think are important to highlight and to share with students, such as photogrammetry. And we also are going to include that in one of the webinar series. And this is an innovation that many educators and people in general have not heard of, but it's an easy enough innovation for it to understand with some guidance. And then also, like I mentioned, it can be implemented into the classroom. And so to go to that website really quickly and just show you the different materials that are available. In order to summarize drones and how drones are created, AGI worked with a geologist from the New Mexico Bureau of Geology and Mineral Resources to summarize how drones are used in earth science. And so Lindsay's created this 5-minute video, which is, again, you can use it directly in your classroom in order to explain how drones are used. Because again, as Ed mentioned, a gateway into the innovations. Students know what drones are, people know what drones are, but how can they be used for education and geoscience specifically? In addition, on the website, there are many other resources about drones for you to peruse, and some of them, depending on your grade level, can be, again, used in the classroom. And then we also have a section about how to incorporate drones into earth science education. And so there are some poster activities, and then also a variety of curriculum that have already been created that we're hoping to drive you towards, just again, to explore how you could incorporate drones into your classroom. And then since I'm on this page, I'll share a little bit that we also have other resources about our other poster we've created, which is related to Geologic Map Day, which is celebrated every Friday of Earth Science Week. And so here again, and I'll share the poster in a second, we again have information about the poster, links to the poster itself, and then activities that you can do with your students and the NGSS alignment. And once again, as Lindsay mentioned, we really want to make sure we're highlighting the engineering, technology, and applications of science, because that's a really good gateway into drones and LiDAR and all these technologies that maybe aren't directly in your classroom, but it's great for you to be aware, for you to have information about, and drive your students into being able to explore the different careers that are related to geoscience and the ways that geoscience and science in general is conducted. And so let me share that poster now with you. And we've decided to go with a 2-sided poster this year to really highlight, again, geologic maps and how they've been improved with LiDAR. And you can see on the left image, or actually you can ask your students and you can make the comparisons of the older geologic map on the left compared to the updated geologic map on the right. And that has been enhanced for various reasons, one of which includes the availability of LiDAR models. And then on the back are the applications of LiDAR and the various ways in which LiDAR can be applied to geoscience, such as finding faults and different hazards and identifying where critical minerals can be stored when you pair LiDAR models with topography. And so there's many different applications of LiDAR, again, bringing in that engineering technology and applications of science and really connecting the real science that's being conducted with your students. So it's not just an old practice. Yes, we make maps, but that's still happening. Even though all these maps have been created, we're creating new maps, updating maps, and finding new resources by using all these different technologies. And then another resource that AGI creates, or actually we organize, is the webinar series. And every day of Earth Science Week, there will be a webinar related to innovation. These webinars are for professional learning first and foremost. They're for your information, but as most of the time will be spent learning from various geoscientists, you're going to be able to ask questions, but also there are 3 talks that specifically will address geoscience education. So the drones for Earth Science on Tuesday, the Wednesday photogrammetry talk, and then the Thursday critical materials talk will specifically talk about geoscience education resources and how you can incorporate those topics into your teaching. And so each webinar, again, will include a variety of professionals, at least 2 or 3, and will help connect you with the different people and different organizations that are really doing the boots on the ground science that you can reach out to as an educator. And we're working with all these people, and they all are very willing to talk to educators, to schools, to students. They want to talk about their science. And so again, it's just, we're facilitating the connection between you and professionals that are doing this work related to innovation.
So one of the easiest areas to address with Earth Science Week is this idea of networking and partnerships. And that is because one of the reasons that we facilitate Earth Science Week and create these kits is because there are a lot of different organizations in the geosciences area that want to reach educators. And the kit is a way of doing that in a rather efficient way. People put things together, they're able to go out in one tranche so that teachers and other educators have these materials. And since they come from so many different organizations, we can think about the different ways that they can be used. We can think about using these networks and partnerships to transform instruction by extending what can be done in the school in various ways, helping students see real-world connections, and also making sure that students can make use of their learning in communities, sometimes through these organizations that have put things in the kit and are connected with the kit. And then facilitating high-quality professional development through networking and partnerships by engaging with other teachers. Sometimes that's informal, also through scientists who you can contact through the items in the kits, through those organizations and other professionals. Getting involved in the work of, say, NASA, USGS, often they have opportunities that they're putting in the kits that they're making available to educators, and becoming and staying aware of trends in the geosciences and related professions. So when we look at the organizations that are partners in the kit, you can see a list here. Each of these organizations has ways for educators to contact them. They announce themselves. Many of them are member societies, like the Soil Science Society of America is an organization that educators can belong to, National Association of Geoscience Teachers, National Earth Science Teachers Association. These are great ways to get involved in areas that are general, if you want to focus on the general areas of geoscience, or more specifically, if you want to be in a particular area and know about that, because that might be an area of either interest or weakness in your background. And so this is a way to use those organizations to make sure that we're networking with as many different partners as we can, and also using the resources that they make available.
And another thing is that during Earth Science Week, not only do we have our theme for the entire week of innovations, but we also have focus days on which to look at specific topics. And this is another way that we work with one of our partnerships, because almost every single one of these focus days is sponsored by multiple ones of our partners who work in this specific area. So for example, National Fossil Day with the National Park Service, and Geologic Map Day is another one that we really highlight. So every single day there is a certain focus. One that we are missing out on this year is that normally on the Saturday of Earth Science Week, there's International Archaeology Day, which will actually come 1 week late this year. So that is October 21st. So it's still being celebrated, just not within the Earth Science Week. And I really think that it's because we prepared for you a solar eclipse on the 14th, and they just did not want to overshadow it. Sorry, that's my mom joke for the day. And so we do have our theme days every day of this week, and we hope that you're able to participate, if not in an Earth Science Week event, but in one of the Focus Day events. Because one of the best ways to get involved in Earth Science Week is to actually attend an event. You can also plan or host your own events, but a lot of these take place in libraries, universities, museums, and other public spaces that are more like informal educational opportunities and are hosted by a number of different places. So to find out what's already planned in your area, you can contact or reach out or look up your state geological survey. And in doing so, there's a lot of events that are posted through those means. But then we also every year make a highlights report. And so what we do as an organization is we look up other places where there are events taking place to celebrate Earth Science Week. And there are events in every single state. So if you go to our highlights report from last year, for example, you'll be able to see the many events no matter what state you live in, and what was going on in those areas, so that if you want to attend an event, you can, or if you want to host your own event to make sure that it doesn't overlap too much with what other people are doing, we highly recommend that you do so. You can also watch the Earth Science webinar series, Earth Science Week, webinar series, that is again every day of that week. We also have a youth organization activity patch where if you attend events or come to the webinar series, individuals in youth organizations can earn a patch. And then we also have our yearly Earth Science Week contest, which our Sequoyah is going to talk about.
Thank you, Lindsay. So for Earth Science Week, AGI sponsors 4 contests focusing on the theme each year, this year's celebration being Geoscience Innovation, Innovating for Earth and People. The 2023 competitions will feature a video, photography, visual arts, and essay contests. Teams and individuals of any age around the world are invited to submit brief original videos on how people are exploring new earth science technologies and practices that can lead to healthier, more sustainable communities around the world. And then through the photo contest, which is also open to all ages, participants are asked to show innovation right here in their communities by capturing an image that shows how geoscience innovation is improving life in your community. This one's open to students in grades K through 5, and that's the Earth Science Innovations Visual Arts Contest, which encourages children to depict how Earth science innovations improve how people interact with the Earth. And finally, students in grades 6 through 9 are eligible to enter the essay contest, where you're asked to describe how one geoscience innovation is making the world a better place. For all contests, the entries may be submitted anytime from now through Friday of Earth Science Week, which is October 13th, 2023. And these contests allow both students and the general public to participate in the celebration, learn about Earth science, and compete for prizes. The first place prize for each contest is $300 in an AGI publication. And you can learn more about these contests, including how to enter, by visiting the Earth Science Week contest online page. And then next, another participatory opportunity is the Edward C. Roy Jr. Award for Excellence in K-8 Earth Science Teaching. This is given annually. AGI presents the Ed Roy Award to one teacher of students ranging from kindergarten through 8th grade in the United States, or key stages 1 through 3 in the UK. The award recognizes leadership and innovation in earth science education. The winner of the Roy Award will receive a monetary prize of $2,500 and a travel grant of up to $1,500 to attend the upcoming National Science Teaching Association National Conference in spring of 2024, which will be held in Denver, Colorado. To be eligible, complete applications for the 2024 competition must be submitted by January 12th, 2024. To learn more, teachers can view guidelines on the AGI website. And I will add that if any of these, if you fit the qualifications, don't self-select to not participate, because we see a lot of times, a lot of the winners, many of which are on the screen, they always say like, oh, last minute somebody suggested I apply, and then here they are ending up being a winner. So they all come from, different areas of the country and have different, experiences to how they ended up applying for the award, but don't rule yourself out, because you never know unless you try. And I'm going to pass it off to Ed where he'll share more about how to celebrate Earth Science Week. You're muted.
I thought I got that. So I'm going to call out Marcy Train, who was in that picture, who was one of last year's winners. Last year we did a special thing. We had two winners because it was our 75th anniversary. We had an elementary and a middle school. And Marcy at the award ceremony told me the story of the application packet had been printed by a friend who thought she was a wonderful teacher, put it in her mailbox at school, and it sat there for 3 weeks. And it was only because the friend came back a week before they were due and said, "Did you get that in yet?" And she said, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." That she actually put it in. So what Sequoyah said is correct. Too many times teachers think that they really need to be something like super phenomenal or out of this world, but all of you are already. So it's just a matter of, showing your stuff. So always happy to see those applications. Now going on to the next slide, what I'm supposed to be talking about is that while we have Earth Science Week, and it is an annual celebration, the purpose is to commemorate and to help people understand the vitality and the many different roles that the geosciences play in society. And we want to see that whole spectrum represented during our Science Week in a really intensive fashion. One of the things that we do encourage, though, too, is thinking about how we can extend this all year long. And one way that we facilitate that is with the Earth Science Week calendar. Within the calendar, there are all kinds of geoscience-related dates, special celebrations, weeks, things like in August, one of my favorites, National Beach Day is in August. Yes, there is one of those, which is on the calendar. In September, Protect Your Groundwater Day. In October, of course, our Science Week, but also World Space Week is also celebrated in October every year. And then in November, we have World Science for Peace and Development Day. So there's just all of these things that you can relate, allow you to relate Earth science and geosciences areas to your teaching and make them something that your students are aware of. And then the last point here is that, like other commemorations, the goal is to remind people of these big ideas, but then encourage ongoing action, not just during the single week. We have these weeks where we really focus on a particular part of our history or whatever. We don't mean for the attention to that to just be in that week. It's just, that's a way of bringing it back up, so that we feel the same way about our Science Week, that it's a way of bringing it up, of getting people excited about it, but then also carrying that excitement through the whole year. So with that, we really want to thank you for attending our webinar. Our emails are here. We are all very happy to hear from you and to answer questions or help if we can. We often get emails from teachers who are looking for specific kinds of resources, and we do everything we can. Usually we start by sending them to their state geologist. We know of those folks, and they are very interested in doing outreach with educators and young people. And with that, thank you for attending. And also here's the QR code that will take you to a short form that will tell us where you would like your Earth Science Week kit sent. For being here today, you each get this year's Earth Science Week kit. We'll send it out as soon as we can. Hopefully they'll get there by October. We've been hearing some things about some very, very slow mail right now, but we'll do our best. So please use that QR code to let us know where to send it. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Missy in case there are questions.
Yeah, we do have a few questions. Thank you so much to the team. When I was in the classroom, I absolutely loved Earth Science Week, and my walls were covered with, and in sequential order, of course, the Earth Science Week posters from each year. And what I love so much about ES Week is that it's a theme. You know, it gets you to be, your brain to be thinking outside the box and thinking a little bit innovatively, instead of it being this year it's on minerals. Instead, we're looking at resources and we're looking at a theme related to that particular topic. So run with it, run with it. I know you're going to have a good time with celebrating Earth Science Week this year. We have some questions, and I'm wondering, first off, is there a specific grade band targeted with the materials in the toolkit?
That's a very good question. So they vary. Some will be very, it depends on who's putting it in the kit. Some partners will put things for very young children in the kit. We have coloring pages, for example, from the National Park Service and others for very young children. When others will put very sophisticated, NASA often puts things into they're very sophisticated that are probably more appropriate for high school or maybe even undergraduate students. When we create materials, we generally target sort of a middle school range, upper elementary to middle school, because we think that teachers can then adjust up and down.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Hey, Lauren, we had a question for you. You mentioned the webinars that are going to be presented during the Earth Science Week. We're wondering, are they going to be recorded in case a teacher can't attend?
Yes, well, they are at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So most teachers are not available at that time. So if you can sign on and watch live, that'd be great with your students. Like I mentioned, especially the Tuesday through Thursday webinars, especially the drone webinar, if you're able to attend live, great. But yes, they will be recorded. And if you sign up to register for the webinar, you will be notified of obviously the webinar, but also when the recording is available, and you'll be sent that email with the link to see it right then. So we recommend registering if you're interested in the topic. Again, either you can attend live or be emailed about the recording afterwards.
Okay, and then a question related to that. Will those recordings actually go onto your YouTube site so that we don't have to look at that?
Yep.
That's terrific. Okay, looking forward to seeing all of them.
And a lot of them will actually be posted in segments, so that if there's a particular segment of interest, you'll be able to zoom to that quite quickly and get to that for either your own purposes or to show your students.
Oh, that's terrific. Thanks, Lindsay. Lindsay, so stay on. One question for you. I noticed that there is a career-focused activity on the calendar. Is there a focus on careers in geoscience in the toolkit as well?
Yes, so the calendar comes within the toolkit, and there's one in there that's specifically looking at mining careers. So it's not just miners, it's just any career that has to do with, access to mines, safety in mines, all sorts of different careers. We have other worksheets that are showing, that actually Lauren might be able to speak to, that she created, looking at many different careers across the geosciences.
Yeah, in collaboration with Geoscientists Without Borders, they really would like to focus on the innovative way that people work together in order to solve problems. And so there are two worksheets, one focused more towards elementary school students and one for more middle school and high school students, where they envision how different geoscience related careers, such as a drone pilot or a geochemist or XYZ, can work together to solve a geoscience problem. And then in the middle school one, it's also what's a problem in your neighborhood and how could the mayor help? How could a community member help? Really looking at all the different types of people it takes in order to solve problems and make progress within your community.
Perfect. And that's another argument for having these themes, because it lends itself so well to this collage of collaboration among so many different people. So that's perfect. Yeah, we have one more question for you before we wrap up. Is there a way for teachers to network with each other regarding Earth Science Week?
Well, I think, go ahead, Ed.
Well, I think we all probably have different answers, can contribute to that answer. I'm going to say the best way for teachers to contribute to network is through, for their Science Week, We have an Earth Science Week update that goes out, and that provides information to teachers. But if teachers really want to become a part of a network in the Earth Sciences, Missy, I'm going to plug National Earth Science Teaching Association for that, AIDA, National Association of Geoscience Teachers. Both of those organizations do an outstanding job connecting teachers and keeping teachers aware of what's going on in the geoscience education community. So that would be what I would recommend in that regard.
Right, terrific. Thank you so much. I know National Earth Science Teachers Association has a nice Facebook presence, so join in, and everybody's just so kind and collaborative. And if you have questions, there'll be somebody there to answer them for you. Well, thanks again to the team. I'm going to pass it on to Aida to bring this webinar home.
Thank you so much. I'm grabbing the screen again. I hope you can see my screen at this point. All right. Just to reiterate a couple of things that I told you about as we were starting this webinar, we do have a couple of upcoming webinars that we want you to know about. First of all, November 2nd, the Infiniscope team from ASU will be here giving us some information about their newest and greatest. Please watch for that registration to open in about 2 more weeks. It'll be open. And then the big teaser that we are really excited about is February will feature geoscience teaching and learning in the time of AI. So please make sure that you jump in for that one. If you would like to get the participation certificate for today's webinar, I'm dropping the link into the chat. Please go ahead and complete that post-webinar survey. That is the only way that you can get the certificate of participation. So you will need to complete that to get that. And earlier I dropped the link into the chat for our new K-12. I guess it's not so new anymore. It's 6 months old or so. I'll stop with the new. Our K-12 teacher professional development opportunities portal. And that portal is currently undergoing a big update. We will have lots of new 2024 offerings on it shortly. So please drop in there. And we'll be emailing y'all about when those are coming out as well. And then I think we've mentioned a couple of times that this webinar series, which is we are in our 9th year now, is brought to you by 3 organizations: the National Association of Geoscience Teachers, NESTA and ESTA, and AGI. On behalf of NAGT, NAGT does have a full webinar series that goes a little bit beyond this particular webinar series, as well as, hey, be in the place where your geoscience friends gather. So please join us at NAGT. I'm going to invite Missy back on to talk about NESTA.
Thanks, Aida. So National Earth Science Teachers Association is an organization for teachers by teachers. Feel free to join us. We're a friendly bunch and we welcome all new members. We have a journal, we have e-news, we've got a Facebook presence, and we're always looking for new leaders as well. So we hope that you'll join us. Thank you.
And Ed.
I don't think I need to say much more than's been said already, so I'll just say thank you all again. Thank you to Missy and Aida for facilitating, and to Ashley as well. And we'll look forward to being in contact with all of you in the future. Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. You'll have a link soon to the archive version of this webinar. We appreciate you being here. Look forward to seeing you on another webinar. Have a great rest of your afternoon.